I'm going to be talking to Emily Porter. She's an analyst with Rocky Mountain Institute and a co-author of Charting the Course for Early Truck Electrification. It's about how quickly the United States can adopt medium and heavy-duty trucks, electric trucks. So welcome to the interview, Emily.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm very interested to have you here because it wasn't that long ago, I'm thinking, a couple of years, where the betting was that hydrogen would be the fuel that won the heavy duty, certainly the heavy duty truck market. If maybe not the medium, but certainly the heavy, and that's just turned on its head recently. Now, it looks like electric is going to at least give hydrogen a good run for its money. So maybe we can start off with just a brief overview of your study, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, we just at RMI published a report called Charting the Course for Early Truck Electrification. And this study is focused on how we can think about the medium and heavy duty truck markets in the United States and which of those trucks might be electrifiable first based on existing electric vehicle technology. And the way that we think about it is by thinking of two things. So first, where are these trucks going to charge in the early days? And we think early on, charging at the vehicle's home base or the depot is the easiest option because fleets have total control over what's happening there. And the second thing is we want to think about vehicle range. So the early models of electric trucks that are available now are relatively range limited. They can travel about 250-ish miles. So when we think about which trucks are going to electrify first, we think, those two things. How far are they traveling and will they return to the depot after traveling those limited miles? And really our assessment is looking at how many trucks on the road today match that operational pattern where they're not traveling super long distances and they're regularly returning to their home bases where they can charge.
Right. And my understanding from your report is that 65% of medium duty trucks and 49% of heavy duty trucks that are stationed in California and New York, because those were the two regions that you studied, are suitable for electrification.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so I think what we're doing really is showing using data that not all medium and heavy duty trucks are driving across the country every day. And actually some of them are driving short enough distances that, an electric truck that is purchased today, that is available today, could actually do the duty cycle. And so I think when we're thinking about, electric truck adoption in the United States, it's not like the entire industry is going to turn over overnight. And so we need to be thinking about which trucks should be starting this transition and how can we identify which trucks those are. So the report really, gives an indication of how many trucks on the road, like you said, based in California, New York, can be electrified right now based on their mileage.
And we should point out that the study was based on real world data provided by your study partner, Geotab.
Yes, exactly. So Geotab is a fleet telematics aggregator. Basically, they have very good insight into what's going on with trucks, both internal combustion engine and electric. And they're one of the leading companies in this space. So the total amount of data that they have access to is almost unparalleled. So yeah, we were very lucky to work with them as a data partner in this project.
Now, you also took a look at how electric heavy-duty trucks and medium-duty trucks would reduce emissions. And this is top of mind for me because I've done a couple of interviews recently about emissions tampering with truck fleets in Canada. And I did one yesterday with Dave Earle from the BC Trucking Association. And we don't have firm numbers, but he figures about 50% of these trucks have had their emissions controls tampered with.
Wow.
And so, there's the industry and the government is struggling with how to fix this problem. And it's a problem in the US as well. It's not confined just to Canada. And electrifying the fleet might in fact be the quickest and simplest way to do that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that is a clear solution. Like I said, when we're thinking about vehicles, they have long lifespans. It's like first we have the first owner, then we have a second owner, we have a third owner. So the trucks aren't just coming into existence for 5 or 10 years and then leaving. It's like we have to think about the entire lifespan of these vehicles. And there's only so far that diesel emissions reductions can take us. And I think thinking about the bigger picture, carbon emissions, NOx emissions, particulate matter emissions, all of these things have really negative consequences, both on people living near where the trucks are being operated and the global community when it comes to carbon emissions. So to me, trucking electrification is one of the best solutions that we have access to. And like you said, the technology has come so far in recent years that I think it's a solution that is becoming more and more reliable. And that is reflected in the fact that many fleets are starting to adopt these electric trucks.
And I can understand why there's a demand, and particularly, I think of medium duty. So we're talking a lot of delivery vans here,
Mhm.
and like many families during the pandemic, we now buy a lot of our stuff online, and it gets delivered by delivery. And I feel guilty every time one of them shows up at the door because, of course, they're driving. They come to deliver a little package to us, and they've done it in a van that's got an internal combustion engine. But
Yeah.
I fool myself into thinking that this is okay because an electric van is coming. But it's the expansion of e-commerce, in part driven by the pandemic, which is still with us, that it really lends some impetus to getting this, to electrifying these trucks.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think what you said about feeling guilty every time you receive a package is a very relatable feeling for many of us. And, Amazon has ordered 100,000 electric Rivian vans to do exactly what you're talking about, last mile delivery. And to me, that's a very good application because, these vehicles are often they're not driving super far distances. They're usually doing relatively local delivery. And there's idling involved, when the truck pulls over on the side of the road and they're trying to figure out where the packages are going to go. And, these packages are being delivered in areas where people live, which means the emissions are impacting people who live there. And, additionally, since these are not heavy duty tractors, they're even easier to electrify than some of the heavier duty vehicles. And yeah, so to me, this is just almost the best use case is last mile delivery. Relatively small vehicles, many of them are available, many models are available on the market right now. And I'm excited to see some big companies like Amazon making these very serious commitments.
Yeah, and I imagine the economics have to work well here because one of the things we know about electric vehicles is the more kilometers you drive them in a year, the lower the cost per kilometer. So if you've got a delivery van that's doing a couple or 300 kilometers per day, 5 or 6 days a week, your cost per kilometer could be significantly less than your internal combustion engine equivalent.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's true. And, additionally, it's still relatively early days, but people expect to see big maintenance savings with their electric vehicles, just lower maintenance compared to internal combustion engine vehicles. So I hope that the costs continue to improve. I will say, of course, there are non-cost reasons to electrify, but again, I do hope to see the total cost benefit comparison work out in electric's favor going forward.
Now, one of the impediments to adoption is charging infrastructure, and
Mhm.
the medium duty lends itself better to this because you're within a defined route, and the trucks all come back to base at night. So the fleet manager, the company can invest in the charging infrastructure. So that's one thing that you're arguing. I think your report says that maybe there's some help with those costs would help the process to speed up. But also the issue, what's your take on the issue around the availability of electricity supply?
Mhm.
Because utilities are going to have to generate more of this clean electricity. They're going to have to do it at a reasonable price. They're going to have to put in the infrastructure to handle this increased demand. What did the study come to any conclusions about that?
Yeah, so let me start by saying, electric utilities have been providing power for about a century, and they've had to do this in the face of other, technological advances. So one example that I like to bring up is air conditioning. When air conditioning became popular, that was, a big additional demand on the grid that utilities were able to provide for. And I think it's a similar situation here, although, the magnitude is much greater. utilities can provide electricity if they are asked, and they are better able to do this if they have a longer time horizon over which to plan. So the more communication that can happen between fleets who are trying to electrify and utilities who are going to need to provide electricity to those vehicles, the better. But I do think that the grid is well equipped to provide electricity, and that's what it's been doing for a long time, and that's what it will continue to do.
Now, I did an interview not that long ago, well, a couple of years ago, with Lucas Davis, who's an economist at the Haas Energy Institute in California. And he had written a blog post where in the early 1960s, only 2% of American homes had air conditioning, but today it's closer to 40%. And so I think that backs up what you're saying about the utilities being able to accommodate growth in load brought on by new technologies, new demand. Well, Emily, thank you very much for this. Really appreciate your insights.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.